Hey guys, welcome to Ground Pounderz Racing. We're finally getting ready to get our 64 Corvette ready for the next racing season. We're into February here, so time to get moving. We've got a lot planned for this year. We've got a lot of work to do ahead of time. Some new tracks should be a lot of fun. So if you're not familiar with Ground Pounderz Racing, we're a group of guys that race big bore cars, some of the old iron. We go out there and have a great time and try and beat each other. We've been doing this now for, probably 15 years anyway. So my car is a 1964 Corvette. You probably, if you've seen us before, you've seen the car. Fairly competitive. It's a great car. I really enjoy running it out there on the track. Last year, we had an incident during our last race at Watkins Glen. We actually had the flex plate fail. Now the flex plate sits at the back of the engine. It is in place of a standard flywheel. I have a lighter flywheel, but it's the item that contains the ring gear that the starter engages to start the engine. So without that, you can't start the engine. So we did have a really catastrophic failure there. The ring gear actually broke at the hub and was just kind of flailing around in there. The car shut off and I coasted to the side of the track and got towed in. Once we got back to the garage, figured out what it was. My crew chief Kenny rolled up his sleeves and got to it and actually cut out the remainder of the pieces of the flex plate and ring gear, so that at least we could push start the car and continue racing, which we did. We got another session in. I started right at the back of the pack and drove like crazy to get up to, I think it was 4th place or something like that. So anyway, this year we need to pull the transmission out, which is what's required to replace that. I've got a new one. We'll get it on there. I want to get this engine fired up, make sure that everything's good. It did run fine in the last session that we were out there. And then we've got a new engine, pretty special engine that's going back in. So we're looking forward to that for this year, along with all of our normal prep that we do, wheel bearings and checking nuts and bolts and looking for cracks and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully we can get ready early this year. We would like to try and get down to Summit Point, which for me is a bit of a haul. So hopefully we can get to Thompson to do some testing and get the car all ready and prepped and good to go. So tag along with us as we go through, get the car prepped, get the flex plate changed out, get the engine changed out, do some other stuff. I encourage you to tag along and watch the progress. Thanks. Okay, now with the car safely supported on jack stands, we can go to the next step. All right, next step is to start under the car. I actually have to take some new drive shaft measurements. Here is the drive shaft that I had made up last fall, right before the Watkins Glen race. I had a little bit of vibration in this drive shaft prior to that, particularly in the 3rd and 4th gears. So I had it extended a little bit so it would push a little bit further into the back of the transmission, hopefully give it a little more support there. But unfortunately, when the drive shaft shop made it up, either I gave them the wrong measurements or they made a mistake. So anyway, long story short, we've got to get this one cut down just a little bit, probably a ½ inch or so, re-weld it up, and then we can use this new drive shaft for the season this year. Hey guys, we're making some progress. We've got the transmission out, the clutch is out, drive shaft is out. I've got the new flex plate temporarily installed so I can fire up this engine, make sure everything's running right since the last time we ran it. Once that's done, I'll pickle this engine and start taking apart everything here to get this engine out and get the new engine in. All right guys, what I'm doing here is getting ready to prime the engine. Basically I have this device that spins a belt on the oil pump so that we can prime the engine before we fire it up. Make sure we don't get a dry start here. So the way this works, this belt wraps around the cogs on the dry sump pump. And we can put it on our drill and let her rip. Smoky mess. All right, guys, I'm gonna let the smoke clear out of the garage here, and then start getting this engine ready to come out, drain all the fluids. I won't bore you with all of that. So next time we'll have the engine on the crane and get it out of here. Okay, guys, we're getting close here. I got things set up. There's the engine getting ready to come out. There's our crane set up. We'll get that hooked up here. And there's the new engine ready to go in. So again, hopefully everything works out here. I think I've got everything disconnected that needs to be disconnected. So I'm gonna put you up on the tripod and we'll go from there. All right, I think we're all set here to start pulling. We'll just go slow and hopefully everything comes out as planned. I also might have forgot to mention, so I've got the front of the car up on go jacks. I use them from time to time, but that allows a little bit of lateral positioning here. The rear wheels are on the ground. It also gets me up high enough so I can get the legs of the engine crane underneath the spoiler in the front of the car. Okay, engine mount bolts are out. Okay, I use this block of wood between the back of the motor and the firewall just to support it. So that's now clear. Okay, I think we just need to go up. Alright, we just take our time, make sure we're clear all the way up. Alright guys, well, first part's done. We'll get this out of the way. I've got to flip the engine mounts over to the new engine. Get this one up on a stand, and then we'll reverse the process. All right, guys. Can't see it very well over there, but we're ready to go back in. This is the new engine, and I got it positioned here. I did jack the car up just a little bit because this front of this jack, you probably can't see it, has to be tight up against the car. I just didn't want to do any damage there. That bought me just a little bit more room. So, all right, let's shoehorn this bad boy back in there. You may have noticed the fuel pump wasn't on the other engine. I wanted to reuse this one, so I pulled it off while it was in the car. Installed it on here. Changed the engine mounts. I forgot the engine mounts, so let's do that now. All right, and this right side mount is a little tricky. I don't know if you can see it there, but I got a captive bolt because of the clearances. So we'll get this in there, see if we can get that started. While I'm doing this, I'll tell you a little bit about this engine. Actually, both engines are very similar. They're both Dart SHP Pro blocks. Configured the same way. We went 30 thousandths over. Normal displacement would be 327. I think we're 331-ish, something like that. This one, we did something a little bit different, and maybe some of you super sleuth engine guys out there will notice the difference right off. I won't give it all away at this point, but there are some differences between the engine I just pulled out, which, by the way, we only ran one season. Originally, both engines were supposed to be done at the same time. We're going to dyno both, and of course pick the one with the most power. That didn't happen. We were lucky enough to get the one I just took out dynoed and ready for the season, although it was a crunch at the last minute, which I'm not crazy about. So this one we dynoed, I think, July of last year. The dyno showed that it was a little bit more stout than the other one, particularly within a power band that I was shooting to have a little bit more power in. And I'll go over all the details of the differences with you, but in the meantime, see if you can spot any. So in vintage racing, we need to run the displacement that came in the car, and then you're allowed a little bit of an overbore, which is what we did. The internals are fairly free, meaning that you can run what you want. Both engines have a custom Calais crank in ultralight. That helps me rev up a little faster. In translation on the track, I can get up out of the corners a little quicker than everybody else. And of course the pistons and rods and everything else is all race jewelry, as we like to call it. So the whole story here, this is the third year in a row that I've done an engine change, and I'm ready for a break. I pulled the engine that I just pulled out, came out of the car to be freshened, and we found that we had some cracks in the heads. Not sure exactly why that happened, but anyway it did. So unfortunately we didn't make that season, and I had a backup engine which was a 310 cubic inch that I had built as a spare, and we ended up running that 2 years ago. Higher revving engine, didn't really suit my driving style as much, but we did okay. It was competitive. So last year I pulled that engine out. We went with the engine that I just pulled out as a fresh engine, and it ran great. We had a great season, won the championship with that engine. This one we're just going to try a couple new things. I've got that one now as a spare. We'll pickle it and get it into storage, and get this one out of mothballs. Should make quite a mess when we start it, but anyway, I'm going to get the engine mount on the other side. So the trick to these mounts is, because we're using this Dart SHP Pro block, wow, it required a little bit of spacing to get it to sit in there right. So I have basically two washers underneath, between the engine mount itself and the block. It's just a little bit different than a typical GM casting, and the way that it sits in the car, that just seems to make it fit the way it wants to fit. It's a little tedious here to get those in, but once we do, we can proceed. So this is a, if you hadn't noticed, and if I hadn't said, this is a dry sump engine. We're allowed to convert these from wet sump to dry sump for safety reasons. Wink, wink, nod, nod. So what that means is this oil pan is not your typical oil pan that's going to drop down here with your sump in it. This is just a flat pan. You'll see on the other side here there are 2 scavenge ports. Those will scavenge out to the oil pump. You probably can't see it. It's down here in the bottom of the engine bay. Normally I would leave that oil pump on and pull it out with the pump, but I'm going to try it this way. Just see it might create a little bit more of a headache going in, but it'll save me having to redo a lot of plumbing or re-tie wrap and route and all that kind of stuff. So the advantage of a dry sump engine, if you don't know, is that when you're road racing and you're going through high G corners, high speed corners, that oil is sloshing around in the bottom of a wet sump. And there can be such forces that it pushes the oil all the way to one side and uncovers the pickup tube, and then of course the engine starves for oil. So may not lead to an immediate catastrophic ending to the engine, but over time, when you keep starving it for oil like that, corner after corner after corner, it does accelerate the wear on the inside of the engine. So with a dry sump system, we're pulling all the oil out of the tank, out of the pan, and we're moving it into a tank which sits over on that corner of the car. And that way, there's a pickup at the very bottom. The G-forces are such that it's incredibly unlikely that the pickup tube at the bottom of that tank would ever not have oil at it. So definitely increases the longevity of the engine, makes sure that you've got good oil pressure and is competitive at the same time. All right, I'm just going to tighten these down. You probably can't see it, but I'll try and pivot. This is where the oil comes into the engine. So this is the original oil filter boss. And what we've done is we've blocked that off, and now we come into the SHP Pros blocks have a priority oiling system. A little different than stock, but really helps to get oil to all parts of the engine equally, as opposed to having some that are well oiled and some that are starving. Okay, now I think we're ready to start lowering this thing in, which is going to go slow. Got a lot of stuff to have positioned in the right position when it goes in. All right, that was the quick part. The rest is slow. I've got to take that distributor cap off just to have clearance there. Okay, getting close. All right, guys, I think I'm gonna have to get under it and jack up the back of the engine. Okay, we're on the mounts. We're just a little bit high. try and get one bolt in here, and then we'll get underneath and lower it. Not yet. Give it one more shot. Okay, got it. So that nut has to fit behind the oil pump into the engine mount, and it's really tight. Yeah. So this side has a little spacer that's got to go in there. And once again, it's really tight. Let's see if I can get my convincer. Well, it's clear that side's going to require a bit more convincing. All right, well, we're effectively in. Other than getting that engine mount tightened up, or at least in there. We won't tighten it until we get the transmission in and get everything set. But we're in fairly good shape. I'll put all this stuff back together, and I'll bring you back when we fire it up. Hopefully that's not long. Guys, just finishing up on our series here with the engine replacement in the Corvette. The engine started just fine. Everything worked out great. Ran good. So anxious to see what it'll do out there on the track. We'll see you out there.